Hey guys, Chris here from Chord, and today we're going to build a drop from scratch so that I can show you the exact process from start to finish, how to pick the best sounds, how to mix them, and how they all fit together. I pretty much build drops every day, whether it's for my own music or for students, and I promise there's a formula to it. Let's go. For this video, we're going to be using the samples and presets from my melodic bass pack, which is exclusively available for members. It allows me to keep doing all of this so that I can keep giving you as much content, as much value, and as much assets for your music as possible on a regular basis. So I truly appreciate your support. Let's dive in. Okay, so we're going to start off with drums. The reason we're starting off with drums and that I don't already have some pre-planned in here is because drums, for me, are the most essential part of this whole drop making process. Without the right drums, none of this really matters, because if they don't punch through, you're going to have a weak sounding drop anyway. So let me show you how I do it. Lately, I've been doing this other thing though, so I'll start with like a melodic loop or a bass loop or something and build the drums kind of underneath it, so that I've got some context as to whether the drums are punching through or not. Let me show you how that works. So I've got this bass loop in there already. That'll work. All right, kick and snare, let's go. I'm just gonna use the same pack. It's really cool actually. It's the Skybreak Colourful Dubstep pack, but they've got some, the samples in here will work for melodic dubstep, melodic bass as well. So I can already tell that I already like the low end of that kick. However, I can clearly hear straight away that it's not coming through the mix. So we can find something else. Maybe that. If you group the kick while it's in the sampler and then press this little yellow guy here, we can drag this on here and it'll be triggered by the same MIDI rather than having two different MIDIs. So I'm going to drag an EQ just on that kick. Increase some high. Nice. All right, that'll come through, especially when we add some sidechain. Let me just add a bit of sidechain. Yeah, I love that. I'm also going to add a transient shaper so that we can drag it on the actual kick on the left-hand side so that it goes on both kicks. Right, it's getting a bit loud now, so let's turn this kick down. Still a bit much, let's go about 10%. Snare time, so let's do the same again. I love the low end of that one, so I'm just going to drag this on next to it, and we're just going to throw that in. I can already tell that I love that. It's definitely going to need some layering though, so let's keep going. Okay, I love the clappy end of that, so we're going to do the same thing. We're going to group this snare, press this little yellow guy and drag this underneath. Press one shot so that the length of the MIDI doesn't determine how long the sample is. And one shot, it's going to play the whole thing no matter what. We don't want all the low end from that. We're looking more for just the clap. Also, we can add in a little bit of fade in so we don't get the transient. And then put it back with that one. Nice, let's keep going. I like that. No, we can find a better sample. There we go. Ableton 12's got this really cool thing now, so that in the sampler you can press this left and right and it will find similar sounding samples so that you can preview them, and some just might work better than others, like in this case. Let's give it a little bit of a fade in and then turn it down. All right, so we're losing the fundamental now, so let's grab an EQ and put it on the first snare, and let's boost that fundamental peak around the 200-ish mark. Cool. Let's find a couple more snares. I want like a really transient-y layer now. Let's just type in snare, see what we get. I've always loved this one, so let's try it out. Love that. All right, let's do an overall EQ on the snare now. So drag it onto the snare directly, and then it's going to go on all 4 of these layers. And let's just shape it a little bit. Okay, it's a bit harsh there, so let's just... Okay, and then lastly, let's add a transient shaper to the snare. Alright, snare overall is a little bit loud, so let's turn it down. Sick. Alright, let's add some cymbals now. We'll go for the same pack. Crashes, what we got? Alright. Alright, that's pretty cool. Yeah, that'll work. There we go, alright. Maybe that on top as well. Maybe that on every. Just like a cashmere crash. Alright, now with the tops, let's just do some EQing. Alright, so there's our drums. Alright, sweet. So now we can delete this bass loop and we can start with a Serum. We're just going to find a chord progression. Now to make this Serum more interesting, just so we get a better idea off the bat, let's just turn up the unison. Drop it a little bit. Alright. Let's see what we can come up with. Let's do something in maybe E minor. I'm a fan of a longer held out chord, so we're going to double this loop. Let's get rid of this long crash here though. We'll just have that come every 8 bars. Then I'm probably going to go down to a C. So G. And then a half step down. G. F sharp. Now we can quickly make chords by copying and pasting these up 7 semitones, like so. Then finding the majors and minors. So I said E minor, so up 3 semitones, but put it up an octave. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to try and make these chords as big as possible for the moment, so that we can figure out a melody and like a progression, like a really dial it in. I'm just going to add a little bit of there we go. Just make it a bit more interesting for us to get something down. Maybe repeat that. Something's off here. Oh, what's this? Whoa. Alright, I'm happy with that. Let's roll with that. All right, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna break this up into the necessary parts that we need to build a full drop. So we're gonna go sub, mid-range basses, chords, leads, maybe an ARP, definitely some atmospheres, and white noise, kind of like. We're gonna work our way from bottom to top of the spectrum. So let's start off with a sub. So we're gonna hide this one for now. This is just gonna be there to like let us know what we're doing. For this, we're gonna use Serum, and we're simply just gonna do a sub oscillator. Let's go into here. We're gonna delete all of the top notes. We're just gonna leave the bottom notes. The bottom notes are what I'd known as the root notes. So this is what we've got. All right, so we can actually go an octave down. It's gonna be very inaudible at the moment. But we can make this a little bit better by adding, let's say, a saturator on here. It's giving it a little bit of a boost. Or there's another good plugin in Ableton called Kontakt. Let's see what I like. I actually prefer the saturator, so let's just leave that on. Now, I don't tend to go past a D in sub. Like if it goes down to a C sharp or a C, I'll go the octave up. So let's go up there. I try to keep it within this 0 range, but only down to D. Below that, it just feels like it gets too rumbly and way too like inaudible. All right, so I'm just gonna sort out the sidechain now. I should mention I've got everything in this drop going to this sidechain bus, which has got a shaper box on it. I'm just gonna make the shape a little bit longer. And do something like that. And something like that. Now this bottom line here is what I determine as like the kick length. So for how long do I want to keep the sidechain down? Obviously if we go way too far. It's hard to tell as much with the sub, but I tend to go around this like 2 lines in mark. And then this chooses like how long I want to hold on to it for. So if I really hold on to it, or I can just choose to be like more lenient with it and let it come back up sooner. That's good for now. All right, so we've got a sub. Let's go for mid-range bass. So I'm just gonna duplicate this. Let's get rid of the saturator on this for now. I tend to just look through some presets that I've got. I always know that this bass 25 one works really well. Clearly needs to go up an octave. On Ableton, if you just press like Command and F and 12, you can just put a plus 12 on there. Just moves it up an octave without you having to do it. Okay, I love that. However, I do want it to move more though, so we can grab an LFO and throw it on this FM from beefing. Way too much, so we can make it a lot slower. And we can drag this in a little bit so it's not going as crazy. So we've now gone from, where is it, this? To, I'm even down to make that like 2 bars to be honest. Okay, I love that. All right, and then I'm gonna take it a step further. I'm gonna add like a camel crusher on, leave it on its initial preset, which is Annihilate, and boom. Holy shit. All right, EQ. So the way I teach my students to EQ their basses is to basically take a look at where your sub is lying, right? So if we take a look at this, so it's there. The highest it goes up to is there, that's C1, and that is at 65 Hertz. Now what I see a lot of people doing is they'll straight up just EQ their bass and do something like, which most people think is keeping it clean, right? But the problem is you've gone past another fundamental peak, which would be this guy. See, we don't want this guy. The sub's already got that one. So we want to go past that. I mean, there's another one right there. Which, if you look here at the bottom of my screen, bottom left, there's an E, it says E1. Now we already know the sub has got E0, so we definitely don't want to go past E1. So if you'd done this at 100 Hertz, you've already lost E1, right? So we bring it back. Nice, so now we have the grittiness from the bass. We haven't lost that pocket of frequencies because we've made sure it's just above where the sub's cutting, and then we're good. We've got a nice solid foundation. Now let's duplicate this bass. I usually have 2 to 3 basses, so I'll turn off the camera crusher for now, but we'll leave the EQ and we'll go find another bass. Let's go the other way. Let's go bass 1. Let's just up this another octave, shift and up. Do you know, I'm actually a fan of that sound. It's not too overbearing, whereas this one is definitely more on the gritty side. This one could maybe fill out like the very, very low mids. Again, we can create more movement though. I can already hear that we can do that, so let's maybe do 1 bar on this. And let's do an Ableton saturator for this one. Just show that you can do this with different stuff. Let's go medium curve. I mean, already we're getting somewhere. Let's go analog then. You can hear that already they're complementing each other. They sound like one thing together, but you take one of them away and you've lost like a lot of power. The idea here is to build a solid foundation for the low end of your track so that when we start building on top, we've already got a solid base to build upon. Not only that though, but like, I feel like when I used to build drop stacks, I would always start with the chords and leads because I thought that was the most important part. But for mixing purposes, it's not, because what happens is then you try and like shove in basses and stuff later and you've already like crammed the whole mix full of like 7 saw layers, when you'll see in a minute that like 7 saw layers probably is too excessive. All right, let's leave it at 2 mid basses for now. We are going to move on to chords now. So let's go Serum. I've got a free pack out there, guys, called the CC pack. It's on the website. And it's basically, I use this pack for most of After All with Araya and Run. And we can actually take this now, we've got the chords, so we can open them back up. We're probably not going to need all this voicing though. Maybe we can delete. That layers beautifully. We just need to tame it a little bit. So this has already got what you would call like OTT on it already, but just Serum's version with the compressor. So when you activate this multi-band mode, it's basically like OTT, and it just makes it way more full and aggressive. Right, but we do not need any of that bass or the top end really. The top end's quite harsh. See, now I'm willing to take this to about there, because obviously we don't need the first peak or the second peak. And then I'm just going to drop this a little bit. Now we're looking for a more top layer, so let's go to silent for this one. Actually, no, let's use the Culture Code Signature preset pack for silent. I believe this is also free for members of the Academy as well. Let's just go for one of these leads, like human maybe? Yeah. I'm gonna see if we can add to this in any way. I'm going to layer this up once more. I would usually go for an Omnisphere after I've added in like my 2 more basic saws, just because I feel like with Omnisphere you get a little bit more character. Now I didn't plan on adding leads yet, but this actually sounds pretty cool for a lead, so I'm just gonna copy that in and just turn it off for a sec. Let's do another Omnisphere. So you can see I've not gone crazy with the chords, we're just keeping it kind of tame. Alright, onto leads. So we've already got one in. Yeah, I wasn't a fan of that like double ride thing, so let's go stop and ride again. This one's always good. Cashmere Crash, I'm gonna do one of them on everyone as well. Yeah, maybe number 4. With this one, I'm actually going to sidechain it as well. So this one, I'm going to grab the sidechain from here, shaper box, throw it on the crash itself, come up to sidechain, duplicate this, and send it to the crash. Obviously, I don't want it as intense as what that was, so we'll just bring this back a little bit. We'll do something like that. There we go. Just acts as a bit more like an effect now rather than full on crash, but it also lets the kit come through a little bit more. Okay, let's slide this lead up. Let's go Serum. I'm gonna use my pack, this square lead. I'm gonna give it a little bit of reverb. Some EQ. Alright, we're going to make this a little bit more interesting, so I'm going to harmonise it with the chords and we're going to do some pitch bends. So let's do a plus 12 on this and a minus 12 on this. Come on, there we go. And then I'm just going to do it by going into the thing. Very old school way of doing it, but it's the way I've always done it. So we're going to go in here, we're going to come down to MIDI control pitch bend. And instead of it just starting dead on there, I'm going to like drag it down a little bit first and do that. And we'll make that one a little bit longer because it's longer. And then what I'm also going to do is I'm going to increase this portamento a little bit, have these notes overlap. And we've just made that so much more interesting. Alright, then I'm going to add another one of my favourite leads, which is the Orchid Drops lead from Nexus. This is originally a pluck, like it's found in Nexus's like factory sounds, and it sounds like this. I mean, that's, hold on. Let me just load in the Nexus to show you what it actually sounds like to begin with. This is why it's important to play with sounds and sort of see what you can make out of them. Because when I felt like this, I was like, this is cool, but it's too plucky, it's not lead-like. But then I found that if you increase the decay and sustain, now we now have a really cool lead sound. All I've done is I've added EQ and OTT. OTT is just making it last a little bit longer and a bit more compact. Not the best sounding lead by itself, but when it's stacked with all of these guys, you know, it completes the puzzle. Let's see how this is sounding. Sweet. All right, then next we need some white noise. So we can just grab any one of these, doesn't really matter. I like silent for white noise just because I can make it wide. So let me show you. So we got this, right? Change this to noise, turn it off. Mono, turn this voice up to 2. Stereo. Really simply, just remove the bottom end. Alright, I don't want it obviously doing that, so I'm just going to legato everything. White noise. White noise adds a ton of energy to the drops, and the thing is, we're kind of cutting it out of a lot of stuff anyway to make room for it. Sometimes I do hard cuts if things are too harsh, but for this we're good. Right, and then lastly I'm going to add some atmospheres. I'm going to add like 2 atmospheres. I'm going to throw a couple of EQs on them. I don't even know what key this is in. Well, hold on, I do actually. Is it E minor? Did I say E minor? So that would be G major. Okay, perfect. So we can go to atmospheres. The Narco ones are brilliant for this. So this G one here will work perfectly. What I love about these is that there's so much movement. We don't want any of this bottom stuff, because if you keep the bottom end in, what you're doing is creating like movement where the bass area is, and then it might sound fine when the G chord hits, but for any of the other 3 notes in the progression, it's going to sound well off, because there's going to be frequencies in that bass area that aren't the notes that are going on at that time. I hope that makes sense. So yeah, we cut out pretty much all of that low end. But just listen to that, there's so much movement. Layer that with the chords. In fact, let me show you the chords first. They're very strong, and like they've got a lot of power behind them, but they don't have that uniqueness to them. And add this into the mix. Crazy. And then what we can do then is, this Horizons pack's got like some really nice atmosphere loops. There's one that's in A, but I can pitch it down to that. Now a vocal atmosphere loop in there is going to sound really good, because it's just got that vocal textureness. It's constantly evolving. Sounds sick. Again, we need to cut out that low end. Again, all of this with atmosphere. Damn! Now to think all of that started from this. You know, it's about layering all the different pieces and just thinking about how they all fit together in a frequency-based thinking process, so that we start from the low end. And remember guys, this is bass music, so you need to get the bass sorted first, and then you can kind of progress up. And the higher you go, the more interesting shit you get to add. You know, because we experiment more then with like random sounds like atmospheres, and the leads have a lot more reverb and stuff. It gets way more interesting at the top, but you need to get the low end very solid and clean first. So I hope this was valuable to any of you guys that are trying to get really clean drop stacks. If it was valuable, please drop a subscribe on the channel, it helps me out massively. And if you want to get more hands-on, come join us at the Sound Horizon Academy, or book a one-on-one session with me and I can personally help you with your music. Peace.